Working behind the scenes, designing some of the most comprehensive and costly corporate wellness programs, I always find it astonishing how companies react when their employee engagement metrics do not align with how executives view their wellness program. This episode is calling all business owners, all C-suite officers, human resource professionals, corporate wellness executives, benefits specialists, well-being consultants, and frankly, any human being who receives health benefits as an employee at a company. And if you think this topic is not for you, think again, because simply eavesdropping on our conversation and learning about how your workplace may be influencing your well-being, for better or for worse, can give you the insight you need to take matters into your own hands. This is going to be a two-part series diving deep into the world of workplace well-being programs, with today's episode focusing specifically on the question, what is a corporate well-being program and why do they exist? And our next episode will unveil exactly why your corporate wellness program, along with so many others throughout the nation, is falling completely flat. Let's go. Welcome to Wellbeing by Design, the podcast where we explore the art and science of authentic well-being. I'm your host, Eva Allen, here to help you craft a balanced life at home, at work, and across the globe. Together, we'll uncover the practical tools and insights to design a life well lived. Don't forget to follow along and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to your favorite podcasts so you never miss a beat. Welcome and hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode, which is actually the very first episode ever that we are going to have a specific key area of focus. Remember how we set the expectation off the bat in our foundational episodes that will cover cultures of well-being at home, at work, and around the globe? Well, this one is specifically focusing on cultures of well-being at work. To be interested in listening to this episode, you do not necessarily have to own a business or be a decision maker or be in the C-suite or be in human resources. Maybe you're just here to eavesdrop because you know what? Sometimes you just want to know, like, hey, what is my company doing that may be influencing how I live my life? How they might be influencing my health and my well-being for better or for worse. Yes, this is workplace specific, but it does not necessarily mean that you need to be a designer of the workplace in order to benefit from this conversation. So, welcome to everyone. By the end of this two-part series, you will understand what a corporate wellness program is, why they exist, and why so many workplace well-being programs just fall completely flat. In order to get there, let's start with the basics and first discuss what is a workplace well-being program and how are they designed. Let's take a peek behind the scenes at what a well-being program or a wellness program or a health improvement program is, how it's designed, and why it's become an increasingly critical element to embrace within the workplace. If you're a business owner, you know it's important to have productivity metrics and safety measures to avoid workers' compensation claims and to increase efficiencies within your operations. Along these lines, it has become more and more popular over the past several decades to have a workplace wellness program. Why? There are several reasons why a company might consider wellness as a priority. Let's start with a pretty obvious reason. Let's not even consider any emotional or empathetic reasons yet. Even if a company is not worried about their employees feeling well, why would they be concerned about their employees being well? Well, what's the opposite of wellness? Illness, sickness. And if your employees are ill or sick, do you think they're going to be more productive or less productive? Do you think they're going to cost more or less than an employee who is well? We first also need to set the tone here that hello, hi. Here in the United States of America, over 50% of the US population get their health insurance through their employer. That means that over 1/2 of US citizens obtain their access to health insurance through their place of work. Depending on how your company's employer-sponsored health benefits for health insurance is structured, there are different levels of how a company might have their skin in the game from a funding perspective. Let's just say there's a little spectrum here and we have multiple dots on the spectrum. The first dot is going to be your fully insured guaranteed cost funding platform. Your company is paying a flat premium regardless of claims. This model is essentially pushing all of the risk onto the insurance carrier, otherwise known as your insurance provider. This is going to be your Cignas, United Healthcare's, Kaiser's, HealthNet, Aetna's, Anthem, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. Now, if we jump all the way to the other end of the spectrum is administrative services only, otherwise known as ASO. You are going to love these 3-letter acronyms in the insurance industry. This model is completely self-funded, where the business is taking on all of the risk. They're only paying for fixed costs. In the insurance world, we have fixed costs and we have variable costs. Variable costs are going to fluctuate in rate, and the fixed costs are really all going to be the same. And the fixed costs are going to be your administrative services, taxes, profit. They're essentially paying to use the carrier's network and for the carrier to adjudicate the claims. However, all of the actual claims themselves, what we call the variable costs, are actually funded by the company. Now, with that being said, most businesses, from a safety perspective, just to protect themselves, will have stop loss insurance. They'll have an individual level stop loss and an aggregate level stop loss. An individual level stop loss is specifically for a catastrophic or a high cost claim for one specific member or subscriber. Your subscriber is going to be your employee who has access to the healthcare through their employer, and the member is going to be any member within that family. It could be a spouse, a dependent. This will be like $1 million premature baby, end stage renal failure for one particular person. And then you have your aggregate level stop loss. Aggregate stop loss comes in and says, hey, company XYZ, you'll only pay up to X amount for your entire population. And if it goes over that amount, then that's when your aggregate stop loss insurance kicks in, and you will not pay above or beyond any of that amount. That being said, this type of setup, administrative services or ASO, the business has a ton of skin in the game. So now you have a snapshot here. They want their employees to be as healthy as possible and to reduce the risk of chronic conditions, as well as catastrophic incidents that may result in what? Higher claims. Now, there's multiple levels of funding, like I said, so there's a whole spectrum. Below ASO, you have shared returns, a 50-50 minimum premium, level funding, graded preferred. Some of these can look and feel like a fully insured plan, but the business has an opportunity to win at the end of the plan year after claims runouts are calculated. So if you're running on a 12-month calendar basis, then after 15 months, your runouts are calculated, and if your plan is running well, then you have an opportunity to actually win. And when we say win, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're saving on claims costs every single month. It may not be the fluidity, the liquidity of the funding. It's going to be more of an opportunity to earn a premium holiday or a premium credit or some type of wellness fund credit toward the following year if the plan runs well. And now I keep saying if the plan runs well, what the heck does it mean if a plan runs well or not? Well, that's where MLR or medical loss ratio comes into play. Every employer group has an actuarial prediction of how the plan is going to run. This is how a plan is underwritten, which essentially is how the premium costs are generated for this particular group. This is customized through a tailored calculation in underwriting using different population risk factors based on your census, such as age, gender, zip codes, along with any applicable or available claims data. This is where the actuarials and the underwriters that are creating the rates for this group are saying, we predict that it's going to cost XYZ amount for ABC group. So let's say the plan runs with a medical loss ratio at 100%, meaning that's exactly how the actuarials predicted the group would run. Now, plans typically run between 85% to 115% of MLR. 85% means that your plan's running really well, actually. Based on the census, the population data, the actuarials, and the underwriters predicted that your group was going to run at 100% of costs, but you actually had a lot less claims because either your group is healthier on average than the other people of that gender and that age and that zip code from a population health perspective, or they're better and more conscious consumers of healthcare. They're going to in-network doctors, managing their health needs without any gaps in care, going to their preventive care, getting ahead of the game. Now, on the flip side, if your plan runs at 115% of medical loss ratio, that means that your group is not running well. Or in the insurance industry, that's when we say your plan is running hot, which then typically results in higher renewal rates. Just a quick note here. If you're in the United States of America and you are a business and you have less than 100 employees, meaning you have 99 employees or less, you are most likely going to have small group pooled age-banded benefits with age-banded rates. So individuals at your company will be paying different rates based on every 10-year age band for that particular employee, along with their enrolled dependents. Does that make sense? Some organizations might choose to use alternative funding down to as little as 10 employees, depending on how risk tolerant the business is. So if you're a business and you believe that you have a really healthy population and you have the liquid funds to take on the risk, you can actually run alternative funding all the way down super low. Now, for me, I really see for folks to dip their toes in the water if they want a little bit more flexibility with their plan designs, they want the opportunity to win, if they're willing to accept the risk that they might lose. I see companies start to get their taste for this right around 35 to 50 employees at earliest, typically. If you have 250 employees or above and you have not considered alternative funding, you have not been presented with alternative funding options, then you and we need to talk. So now that we have the basics covered for the concept of health insurance being offered by employers through the workplace, now we can go into the most basic reason why employers might want a wellness program or a health improvement program. Let's face it. The most prominent reason why a business will want a health improvement plan is because they have skin in the game. They want their claims to be lower and they want to control bottom line costs. Why do they want their claims to be lower? Because it's going to give them a better chance to have lower renewals in future years because their employees are generally healthier, resulting in a lower MLR, reducing future risk. Even if the company doesn't have skin in the game for the claims independently, let's say they're fully insured, guaranteed costs, they're still underwritten every year at renewal. Now, if you're a small group under 100 and traditional funding fully insured, you're going to be age-banded pooled rates, which means that all of the members, no matter what employer they're with, are going to be pooled together into one super group. And then every quarter, new rates are released based on how those pools of people are running. Now, if you're over 100 employees, you're considered to be a large group, and you're going to start to be medically underwritten independently, just your population, with the opportunity to have skin in the game for renewals. So even if you weren't paying claims, you are paying for renewal increases. And if you work with renewals, if you are in this wild world of insurance and benefits, you know that renewals can run absolutely berserk, utterly bonkers. You could have a renewal where the carrier is going to give you a rate relief, a 0% renewal, and that never ever happens when it comes to health insurance. Really, unless you alter the plans to make them less rich or you alter your network to make it a slimmer network of doctors and providers available. There are a ton of different levers that we can pull in very strategic ways that as consultants, we can work with you to help you reduce your cost and make your insurance more manageable. But from a renewal perspective, if you're staying apples to apples with your benefits, using the same networks and the same carrier, you're always going to have an increase just like inflation. However, the average inflation for employer-sponsored group health insurance benefits is just a smidge higher than the average norm. The average normal economic inflation has been about 3.8% annually over the past several decades. Whereas employer-sponsored group health insurance benefits is right around 7%. Now, we can see renewals running anywhere between 5%. And depending on the group, and I'm not going to say that this group is necessarily going to renew with this particular carrier, and that's why inflation stays at 7% and doesn't skyrocket super, super high. And thank goodness for the lack of monopoly with insurance carriers, because this is where the employer has an opportunity to switch insurance carriers if their renewal is this high. But I will tell you that I have seen renewals as high as 60% because it's absolutely a very, very high risk case. There have been a lot of catastrophic claimants, and there are a lot of long-term chronic conditions. Now, catastrophic claimants can be a little bit interesting because sometimes from a utilization perspective, these individuals fall off the plan. They move on to Medicare, they might stop working, but from a chronic condition perspective, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder or COPD, depression, hypertension, all of these chronic conditions on average totaled $1.1 trillion of healthcare spend, and that was in 2016. Now you can start to see that an employer might want to create a workplace well-being program in order to reduce their risk. This is the world that I'm in, guys. I live and breathe this every single day. And my favorite type of client to work with is those who don't necessarily just do it because they're trying to reduce cost. They're doing it for other reasons too. Even if you're not offering health insurance benefits, companies around the globe have another reason that is really very important to take into consideration. And I nodded to this a little bit earlier in the episode, and that's going to be general productivity. Employees who are healthier and happier are generally more productive compared to unwell employees who have to take time off of work to deal with a medical condition known as absenteeism, or unwell employees who actually show up to work, but they're not driven, they're not energized, they're not focused, they're not functioning at their full capacity, known as presenteeism. Employees who are generally healthier, according to the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, can save $375 billion annually. So from an overarching perspective, healthy employees are just good for business. And then even further, my all-time favorite type of client to work with is the employer who doesn't necessarily do this to save money on health insurance costs. They don't necessarily do this because they want to increase their productivity or they want to increase their efficiencies. They do this because it's just a feel good. They care about their employees. They want their employees to be well. And most importantly, they want their employees to have a good daily experience. And they're creating this culture of well-being in the workplace. They want their employees to not leave, to increase retention and increase being able to recruit new talent, because employees say, gosh, I want to work at this company, but also because it's just generally the right thing to do. They want their employees to live their best life possible. That's my all-time favorite type of client to work with. At this point, we are ready to jump to the question, what exactly is a corporate wellness program? As a certified workplace well-being consultant, this is indeed one of my unique skill sets and specialties. Let's start with basic traditional wellness programs. Traditional workplace well-being programs are designed based on population health. This is simple population health management at its finest. First, we need to gather metrics. And if you have enough data, if you're a large enough group and you have enough enrolled in your health insurance plans, then you might have what is called utilization data. Utilization data offers a nice little peek into your plan. They offer a peek into your high cost claimants, and they offer a peek into what types of chronic conditions there are. Now, if you don't have utilization data, there are a ton of other ways to collect data. I love data. I think that data is one of the most important parts of a workplace well-being program, because when your CFO says, hey, has this program been successful? Has it been productive? What's the return on investment here? We can easily say, here is where we started, and here's where we are. So we set the benchmark so that we're able to stratify risks so that we can compare year over year. We can evaluate, we can evolve based on population health needs, and we can present these executive summaries that are really nice one-pagers that summarize the data. A couple of other examples of ways that you can collect data is to have a health assessment. You might know them as a health risk assessment. We like to remove the word risk because it's just a general health assessment that creates awareness of both strengths and opportunities for improvement. Creating opportunities to collect this type of data helps create awareness from two perspectives. First of all, it helps create awareness for the individual employee as to what their metrics are based on their own current lifestyle and habits. And then it also creates an aggregate baseline for data for the entire group. And when we say aggregate, that just means that this is all of the employees and hopefully family members too who have participated in the health assessment campaign. Then you can also run a campaign and even offer incentives for folks to complete their biometric screenings. You can offer these events with a vendor who will come on site to conduct biometric screening programs. They'll capture all of your vitals, your height, your weight, your BMI, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your cholesterol ratio, your HDL over LDL, your glucose levels. You'll get all of the data, and you can offer this immediate coachable moment when you have these on-site biometric screenings, with participants walking away with lifestyle prescriptions, if you will, learning things they can start to do to improve their numbers today. You can also conduct this type of a campaign with encouraging your employees to actually go into their doctors for their biometric screening during their preventive care. So they're already running their numbers with their doctor during their preventive care, and then you can actually collect this data from that preventive care visit and funnel it back into your system so that you can at least collect the aggregate data behind the scenes as your employees are receiving their individual data at their doctor's appointments. So if you conduct a successful health assessment and biometric screening program, you're going to collect enough data so that it's known as credible data. Credible data means that you have a viable viewpoint of your population, and now you can begin to stratify risk and tailor your program based on your population's health needs. You can actually use really amazing predictive modeling tools. And predictive modeling is essentially saying that we predict these are going to be your next high claimants within the next 3 to 5 years based on their current lifestyle and their current risks. So this part is super simple. Like, my science mind gets tickled when we look at data like this, because it's simply like playing whack-a-mole. Here's a problem, let's fix it. But as simple as this may sound, well-being, believe it or not, is so much more complicated and so much more deep than this traditional historical viewpoint of a wellness program. And this, my friends, is exactly where the problem lies, and exactly why this absolutely needs to be a 2-part series, because we need so much more time to unpack why so many of today's workplace well-being programs are falling flat. So if any of this resonates with you, if you've been nodding along, if you're like, yeah, I get that, or yeah, that sounds familiar, but you're like, but I don't understand why my workplace wellness program isn't working, this is going to be continued in no time. So tune right back in. I know the suspense is just going to drive you absolutely wild. I can't wait to catch you on the next episode. Until then, may you continue to live the life you love and love the life you live.